Hi, I'm Greg Dell, joined by attorneys Alexander Palomara and Stephen Jessup, and we regularly provide tips for people who are on claim or for those that have been denied and need help to get their benefits reinstated. One of the biggest things we see that is something that happens behind the scenes that most claimants have no idea about until it happens. And what that has to deal with is the disability insurance company's communications with the doctors that the claimant have seen already. And Stephen, I want to start with you and talk about how you see there's usually a problem or can be a problem by the manner in which the disability insurance company reaches out to the doctor of which the claimant was treating with.
I think the biggest area of concern is the cold call that the doctor does take. A lot of times you'll see that the doctor never responded, left a message, but when the doctor does take the call, may not necessarily have the file and they say, hey, I want to talk about your patient, with regards to restrictions and stuff like that. And I always think that the insurance company doctor always phrases any conversation about restrictions as almost like they're trying to help the patient, right? Our opinion, we looked at everything, we think you'd only be capable of sitting for, 6 hours, maybe lifting up to like 10, 15 pounds, things that fall in line, as we know, Department of Labor standards for physical work, sedentary capacity. And if you're a doctor and that's severe restrictions. Sedentary restrictions are severe physical restrictions. So the doctors sometimes say, yeah, I agree with that. And that right there, and doctor not understanding necessarily what's going on, usually results in a denial of the claim.
Now, Stephen, you took the assumption that there's a cold call, which there usually is. In my opinion, the doctors never answer the phone on that call, because when was the last time anyone ever called the doctor and said, I want to talk to the doctor, and they pick up the phone? Doesn't happen. So, Alex, how does it usually go down? I mean, the doctor may call them back, but assuming the doctor does or doesn't call them back, how do you usually see in these denials the way in which the communication took place?
Well, it typically is either via phone call or via a letter that they send to the doctor. But about the phone calls, again, your doctor is a busy doctor. Most doctors are. So they want to get off the phone as quickly as possible. They want to be agreeable. The doctors that are calling them are going to be very personable, very complimentary. I read your medical records. They were great. This is what I thought. So they set a trap for the doctor. It's the right thing to do is to tell your doctor, never talk to the insurance company on my behalf. If they ask for any opinion, ask for, put their questions in writing, and you're going to respond in writing. But that could also be a trap, because sometimes the doctors, their assistants will put something on their desk and they'll just check mark, say, hey, do you agree with this? They read it really fast, check mark, sign their name, send it back. They're going to use that to deny your claim. The best thing you can tell your doctor to do is say, hey, listen, if you get anything regarding my claim, let me know and we'll talk about it at my next visit. And then you can talk to your doctor and say, let's read about this. What are we agreeing to? And the doctor has to understand that, like Jessup was just saying, if you say, oh, he's a sedentary person now, he has so many restrictions, limitations. To you, that sounds like, oh, he can only sit all day because he's so disabled. So the insurance company says, oh, he's sedentary. That means he can sit all day and do a desk job. He's no longer disabled. So they're going to take it and run with it.
Well, here's the thing, and we were talking about this sedentary, and a lot of people, Stephen, you can explain what that means, but they don't say, can they be sedentary and do X? They just say, can they be sedentary? So talk about what that means, and is there any job where the only requirement is to just sit in the chair?
Okay, so going to sedentary, that goes to the Department of Labor standards for physical work. There's sedentary, light, medium, heavy, and very heavy. This then goes into insurance companies in the way they review occupations. Every occupation is assigned some physical demand level, sedentary being the most predominant, in the U.S. Workforce. So what the insurance companies do is they'll try to ignore what your real duties are. Maybe you're, a lawyer, a CPA, something like that, whatever, an engineer. They'll try to ignore that and just say the physical requirements of it, right? So they'll always kind of dumb it down to, hey, can you do sedentary work? So even when they approach the doctors with that, they do this idea of just meeting that physical restrictions limitation, because the reviewing doctor for the insurance company, they're not tasked with trying to determine if your condition prevents you from working. They're tasked with trying to determine if your medical records show that you should have restrictions and limitations. So it's a real nuanced thing. Half the time, they don't even discuss with your doctor, can the person do their job?
They're only talking 90% of the time
about the idea of, can you do the physical requirements of the job, right? So they play this game where they're just kind of touching, what the occupation is, just barely, briefly hitting it, but then trying to use anything that seems to indicate a physical ability as indicative of a global ability. I mean, is there any truly sedentary job that all it requires is sit there? I mean, maybe a night guard at a very quiet place. I don't know, right? You know, most sedentary jobs nowadays in the economy are some level of what I call skilled sedentary. Computer use, technology use, having to use cognitive skills to be able to focus, do things, work related. Our jobs, we're sedentary. Lawyer job, it's sedentary. We sit at desks all day, but we don't get paid because we can sit there and lift 10 pounds occasionally. But that's what the insurance company doctor is trying to sell, to your doctor.
They always overlook the cognitive requirements of any occupation. Your job, most jobs, you have to use your brain. So even if you can sit here all day, if you're dealing with pain, how are you going to concentrate on your task at hand? You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get fired, right? So your doctor has to be clear that, hey, maybe he can sit all day, but he's going to be dealing with pain all day, not being able to do his job. So whether your doctor says it or not, it's very important that they highlight that, or you at least highlight that if your case gets denied, so you can file it in the appeal with that argument.
And then Alex, you touched on and said that the treating doctor should not communicate with the insurance company. And I want to be clear that what you're saying is, like, there should be this big red warning label on a file, although it's all digital files right now, that the claimant is telling the doctor, hey, I have a disability insurance claim, which they may or may not know because they may have never filled out paperwork or anything. This insurance company may call you. Please understand that they're calling you, first of all, about a disability policy that I have, which has to do specific to my inability to do my occupation of what I'm doing. But I've been advised that you shouldn't speak to them. Please ask them to send you something in writing, and please call me, because I'm not authorizing you to speak to them without me telling you, without you asking me the questions, because otherwise you may not tell them the right thing, and that could result in a denial of my claim. And we see that as a significant basis for a denial. The other thing, guys, that we see that I don't like is often a doctor will do a review, fax it over to the doctor's office or email it or mail it, and say, if I don't hear from you within, 5 days, then if you have any objection, then reply within 5 days. Otherwise,
they're going to assume you agree.
Otherwise, we assume you agree.
The most ridiculous statement I've ever seen. That I see on a regular basis, and I always roll my eyes.
And so that's another reason that the claimant needs to warn the doctor, say, hey, you may get a letter. Now, how many letters from insurance companies do you think a doctor's office gets on a daily basis?
I think the bigger question is, how many letters from insurance companies does a doctor's office get on a daily basis that the doctor actually even looks at?
Within 5 days?
Because their staff usually handles most. I mean, there's been times I've put requests out to the doctor and we're told, no, we don't do this. And then when I'm able to get a hold of the doctor, I was like, oh, that was just a misunderstanding with my staff. So the staff will act as a buffer to the doctor at times.
For our appeals, we oftentimes reach out to the doctors, have them fill out a attending physician statement that we draft up. Do we get them back the next day? No. Do we get them back a week later? Sometimes. Do we get them back?
Sometimes do we get
later?
them back?
Right.
So
it takes time. So if the insurance company, it's ridiculous that they do that. It's a total sham. And they're violating the fiduciary duties when they do stuff like that. But that's the way they act sometimes.
The best part, and even we see it, when it comes to responding to things, like you said, if they mail it to the doctor's office, by the time it gets there, sometimes it's already past the time to respond.
Even they send letters to us, and it's the same thing sometimes.
Another thing I don't like, and it's a laziness, or maybe it's intentional on the part of the disability insurance company, is often our clients and claimants will have more than one doctor. They'll always have a primary go-to doctor, maybe two doctors, maybe a pain management doctor, maybe an internal medicine doctor, maybe a specialist for whatever their particular disease or disabling condition is. But then the disability insurance company, who's lazy, gets a hold of the file and reaches out to the doctor that they saw one time, either maybe recently for a consult for something, or maybe like a year ago. And then they send that doctor one of these letters or call them to talk about the medical condition, and they don't even reach out to the 3 other doctors who are the ones who really know about the claim. And then they rely on the response from that one particular, who, like, let's say it's more often than not they know. They'll go to the surgeon, right, for some kind of thing. And the surgeon half the time will say, maybe you're a candidate, maybe you're not. Doesn't even know they're on disability because they're literally going there for some kind of alternative treatment to get themselves better. And here comes this disability company that sends a letter to that particular treater and goes, is there any limitations? And that doctor writes back, no, or I don't know, or yes, I agree with you, or whatever. And then there you go, is a denial of the claim. And so this is a routine problem that we see, whether it's a treating doctor or some other doctor, and it all could be avoided every single time if the claimant had said to the doctor, please don't answer this letter without talking to me. And Steve, you brought up a great point. How often is it the nurse that fills it out and sticks it in front of the doctor's face and the doctor signs it? Because we can undo it, and we do it on a majority of our cases. We go back to the doctor and the doctor says, that's not what I meant. The other thing that really bothers me, of these letters, which all the companies do, how often do you see the letter written in such a manner where the letter says, I'm writing you because we're with a disability insurance company. Yes, they may do that. But the next thing they don't do is to say, so-and-so has a claim for long-term disability insurance benefits. The definition of disability is so-and-so. Their occupation is so-and-so. Do they have any restrictions or limitations related to their ability to perform this job of its own occupation or any job? Have you ever seen where they even put in the definition of disability when they write to these to the doctors?
Never. I never see it. You know, they don't want to give that much information. They want to be as bland as possible to set a trap for your doctors. It's always a trap. Another thing I see oftentimes is, let's say my client has 5 different things, 5 different disabling conditions. Maybe not the knee itself is disabled, maybe not the back itself is disabled, but they're globally disabled because they have so much pain, so many different issues. They can't sit all day, can't do their job, whatever it is. So what do? They go to this doctor. Hey, is your client disabled? Can you do sedentary work? Yeah, he can do sedentary work. They go to this doctor. So you kind of need, and they go to 5 different doctors, all say, oh, we can do sedentary work. But you need to have one doctor who's almost like the quarterback who can put it all together sometimes that say, hey doc, if they reach out to you, make sure you say, I'm globally disabled, because I am globally disabled. Take into account everything. I cannot work. So sometimes it's best to say, reach out to this one provider. Here's my main treating provider, so you can ensure the insurance company reaches out to that person, or at the very least, have that doctor write a letter of support for you once a year or once every 6 months to ensure you remain on claim.
I know the other thing we do when we're on the file and we try to put up this barrier, and we'll tell the disability insurance companies, do not communicate with our client, which they wholly respect that. They're supposed to. Every now and then they'll still go back to the client. But we tell the clients, don't talk to them. Tell them you have a lawyer. We also tell them, don't communicate with our doctors, with any of the claimant's doctors. Anything you need, medical records, we'll get it for you. You want to talk to the doctor? We'll set the conference for you. And even with that, they're so incompetent and so disorganized at many of these insurance companies that they still go back to the client, and the clients will call and go, why are they calling me? I go, because they don't know what the hell they're doing. We've told them 10 times, and they've been doing it for years, but now they decided to send you a letter. Don't talk to the doctor. We tell them that, and they still do it. Now, when they do that, and they don't follow the request for privacy or the fact that they're represented, it makes the insurance company look bad and careless and reckless in the way in which they do their conduct. So that's helpful, but they still go to the doctor. But with us being involved and being able to tell them, hey, you shouldn't have done this, because we wanted to avoid any kind of miscommunication, and we want our doctor to have the full story, not the little, the half story about just, are there any restrictions, limitations? We could have avoided all this. So it is helpful to, have that barrier in place by having a lawyer. And it's also helpful for a claimant who's not represented to say, if you need anything, please communicate with me. You're not authorized to speak directly to my doctors. And that goes to those authorization forms that I often, the claimants are required to give them authorization to get medical records, but they can also tell them that if anything you want, please notify me. Gets into a little bit of issue because those authorization forms are super generic, that the claimant signs. So I try to also tell the carrier, we'll cooperate with you on every single thing that you want that we think you're entitled to. So medical records, you can always get them, but send us a specific medical authorization so that we know what's going on. And then, Alex, you always talk about with medical records, it's not necessarily the insurance company's burden to get them medical records. You as a claimant need to provide the proof of the disability. It's not their job to get the proof that you're disabled. So that's another... Well,
it's their duty, but they do, I'm having a curse, they do a half-assed job doing it half the time because they don't want to prove to themselves that the person's disabled, because they have to pay thousands of dollars per month.
Right.
So ultimately, it's your duty to provide the proof. And when you're providing those records, you know what's in them. So you know what you're giving to the insurance company and how it's proving your case. And if there's a bad medical record, you say, oh man, this one's bad. I better not send this in. Let me talk to my doctor so I can have this revised or edited.
Clarified.
Clarified or expanded upon.
Well, those are good points, and what we always encourage someone out there to do is obviously take these tips and use them in terms of communicating with your doctors to try to prevent denials. And if you're in this situation, likely you've come across our video because you were denied because your doctor said something that's inconsistent, there's opportunities to rectify that and deal with that situation. So give us a call, whether you speak to Stephen, Alex, or myself. No matter where you live in the country, we're available to assist you, and we'll always provide you with an initial free phone consultation.